Hi, I'm Alvina Ling,
And I'm Grace Lynn.
and we're book friends.
Forever!
We're childhood friends,
Who grew up to be
a children's book editor.
and an author and illustrator.
Welcome to Book Friends Forever. This is the anniversary Q&A Part 2 episode.
And check out our website, bookfriendsforever.com, and our Instagram handle at bookfriendsforever_podcast. Alvina, how have you been?
I've been good. I actually, I had a day off today because Stephen and I did a school visit together.
Oh, how fun!
So his friend Casey had invited us a while ago, asking if we would speak at her daughter's school in
Uh-huh.
Brooklyn. And, she said, Stephen could talk about poetry and Abby could talk about, her job as an editor. And so we said, sure. And it was their book bash. It was like PS 111, I think. Great schools in Fort Greene, about a half an hour walk from where we are. But it's funny because I've done this before with Greg was a fifth grade teacher, so I spoke at his class. I think I'd spoken, but more in Zoom. Like sometimes I'll like Zoom into other
Mhm.
like classes, but I don't do school visits regularly. So it is actually helpful. So it was their book bash. So like Sharon Flake was there, Tracy Todd.
Oh,
I saw Peter McCarty was supposed to, I think, have been there, but I didn't
uh-huh.
see him. And there were some other authors that
I don't even know what he looks like. I
oh,
know his book
I
though.
think we
His
looked him
Little
up.
Bunny on the Moon.
Yeah. So, because they had different authors or illustrators or just people come in to talk about books, to all the different classes. So we talked to two fifth grade classes and, it was really fun. They're really, what gave me a lot of hope is that I did ask, how many of you love to read? And, the first class, I would say at least three-quarters of the class said they like to read. And then I said, and which of you don't like to read? And I said, and that's okay too. And, and people raised their hand. And, um, and I said, I think that's just because you haven't found the right book yet. And in the second class, everybody raised their hand except for I just noticed just one one boy said he didn't like to read. But that just gave me hope that there are still kids that love to read.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm hoping that this dip is because, like they were saying it's like the pandemic catching up with us. Like this is
yeah, yeah,
the
and
dip is
and they
because
are reading books. So they had,
yeah.
because a lot of people say, oh, the kids they're not reading full books anymore. But a lot of in the second class they had just read Esperanza Rising. Um,
Um,
the first class we went to, I had brought a copy of Will's Race for Home, and I put it on a kid's desk, and the kid read the little byline and said, "Oh, this byline says that she wrote Ghost Boys. We're reading Ghost Boys next." And then I saw that
oh,
there was like a classroom stack of Ghost Boys, and I thought, "Oh, wow, that's cool." So, so that was really great. But it's also very exhausting, as I'm sure all of you authors know. And so I'm glad I took the whole day off and instead of going to work because I took a hour and a half nap in the afternoon. So I'm a little
it's strange how
groggy.
exhausting it is, right? Because I remember trying to explain it to Robert, right? And he's just like, I don't understand why you're so tired. You're just talking. And I was like, I don't, it's
And it's a
really
different
is.
kind of exhausted than, it's similar to, I guess, speaking at a writer's conference, but it is different
It's really
because
different,
it's,
I think.
yeah.
I
And
find.
what is that difference? I don't know. It's hard to
I feel
pinpoint.
like it's like when you're talking to kids, you're putting so much more out there. You're like really on alert and you're really trying to
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas,
Hmm.
um, at least that's how I feel. And it's like so, and you're really hyper focused about can I connect, like and looking at each one. At least that's how I
Yes.
feel.
But the
It's
kids are so great.
aw.
And then, so I actually have taken 2 days off of work because yesterday I took the day off because it was Steven's birthday.
Happy birthday, Steven.
Yay! Happy birthday to Steven and his twin brother
It's
Dave, and
true.
then Balin and Quinn.
Happy
So
birthday, Happy birthday, twins.
yes, I took I had planned a spa day. So we went to this place. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right. It's it's spelled Aire, so, which I always pronounce as air in my head, but it's Aire. I think it's Spanish.
Mhm.
And it's like different kinds of pools and they like cold plunge and a salt bath and hot tubs and it was so nice. And we got an hour-long massage and it
That
was so
sounds
lovely.
nice.
Uh, which I think was much needed and then before that I was at Kindling Words, which I was
Yes,
preparing to
how was
leave for.
that?
It was wonderful. But it was in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Because I don't know if I mentioned that it was supposed to be at Providence again. The hotel got sold, but they honored the contract at another location, which was in Plymouth. A little harder to get to. It's just, I had to take a train, Amtrak into Boston and then took a commuter rail and then took a car and it's just a little
Oh,
more.
wow. That sounds like a
I
pain.
think my travel day, I left my apartment at 6 a.m. and I got there at 2:30 p.m. So it was just a
Mm.
long day. But it was wonderful as usual.
Is it going to be there next year?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that was just a 1 year thing, unless
Mhm.
it went really well. And I heard a lot of negative things about the hotel. I
Mm.
mean, the staff was great, but they were going through construction and there was a swimming pool and like a splash pad. So there were a lot of kids there. So we didn't have
Mm.
it was a bigger
Yeah.
hotel. So some people were saying that their room smelled a little musty. Someone said that they had a
Mm.
mouse in their room. So, so there are wonderful things about it, but I just don't think it was probably the
Yeah.
best place to have it
Yeah.
again.
Hmm.
Um, Meg Medina ran the author strand. Jeanette Bradley ran the illustrator strand, and
Oh.
she's the one who Padma had partnered with for
Yeah, the Rhode
the
Island Freedom to Read
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah. And so she talked a little bit about that, which was really great.
Awesome.
And then Emma Dryden ran the editor strand.
Oh.
And yeah, it was wonderful. But then on Saturday, so beforehand, everyone said, there's a storm coming on Monday, so just be aware, if you're not leaving until Monday, you might want to, reschedule. And then, on Friday or Saturday, they started saying, oh, actually, the storm is supposed to come a day early.
Oh,
And so
nuts.
everyone started panicking a little bit. My train was 1:40 on Sunday, and so by the time I looked at it, it was all the trains earlier were sold out. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna hope because in New York it wasn't supposed to hit till I mean, it was supposed to start snowing at 6 a.m. on Sunday, but it wasn't supposed to start sticking or really be bad until the night. So
Hmm.
I figured, well, I guess I'll just see how it goes. But Emma ended up because her train wasn't until like 4 p.m. and that
Mm.
probably would have ended up getting canceled. So she ended up taking a train Saturday night. A lot of people left Saturday night who were driving because they didn't want to have to drive
Yeah.
into the storm. A lot of people's flights got canceled. There
Yeah.
was two people who were there from Ohio, and they decided, well, I guess we'll just drive instead. So they
Oh,
drove like a 10-hour drive.
holy smokes.
I know at least two people who got stranded. One was in New York, and the flights to New York were getting canceled, which I thought
Uh-huh.
was weird. Um, and then one of the editors lives in LA, and her flight was canceled, and she
Mm.
wasn't even flying. Like it wasn't snowing in Boston yet until that night.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
some people got
Mm.
stranded for a couple more days, so that was too bad. But it's just a wonderful time. I do always feel rejuvenated. Even though I'm very tired, I also feel just inspired, I guess I should say. So I feel good. So I definitely
Awesome.
recommend it. There are a lot of book friends, book friend forever
Aw,
listeners. So
that's
shout out to
nice.
all of them. And some of them,
I saw that you like put a little comment on my Instagram post with the Children's Book Week poster, and you're like, I'm at Kindling Words with one of the illustrators that I put on the.
yes. Yeah. So Katie, had come up and said, "Oh, you had Libby Component on your podcast." I illustrated one of her books. I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's at the bus." And we were talking. She's like, "Oh, I'll just say this I guess for you authors out there." She said, I've illustrated a lot of books, but this was the first one where, sometimes I'll connect with the author on Instagram or something, but Libby made a point to email me and just, and when we won the Bank Street Award, she sent me stickers and she just was like, oh, she's so lovely. And she was so I just thought that was interesting because it's true. I think, authors and illustrators usually aren't put together. And I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
I think though you have to tread. I feel like you have to tread. carefully. I feel like they should get together afterwards, like after the book is
Right,
done.
right.
But I
Then this
think we
was
like,
after the book.
oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like
No, no,
during
no. It was
the.
after. She said after everything.
Oh,
Libby had
okay. Yeah,
emailed
then
her. Yes.
definitely. Yes.
No, no. We actually we that was a topic of conversation of why sometimes it's better for the author and illustrator to be kept separate. But no,
Yeah,
afterwards I feel, and I think with the
definitely.
books that I work on, I usually once I start sending reviews, for example, I'll put
Yeah.
the author and illustrator on the same email because I just don't want to send multiple emails every time I just send a review. So
No, no, no.
yeah.
I agree. I think after the book is done, I think it's perfect. I think
Yes.
they should reach out to each other. They've created something together. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. It's just
Yeah, and
beforehand.
she hadn't
A
known
little.
that you had put it on the poster. I said, "Oh,
Oh,
Grace put that on her," and she was so moved. She's like, "Oh my
aw,
gosh, one of my books is on a book week poster. That's great." So, yes,
yay.
yeah. Anyway, how have you been?
Gosh, there is so
You're
much snow.
you're leaving
Actually,
soon. Yes,
I
the snowstorm.
know. So what did we do? Okay, so it was Hazel's vacation week. We did not do any. Usually, I think I might have said this last time. Usually, we try to go to my sister's college in Skidmore to sell cookies. But
Hmm.
this year we weren't able to. We were not able to do that because another troop is there selling
Oh,
cookies.
but
So
you did go already, right? Didn't you
yes,
go?
we went
Okay,
once. Usually, we try to. We
go
have to reach
multiple
that
times.
1,000 boxes.
Yes, and
I
they
don't.
would have probably already eaten the boxes that they
I know.
ate.
But I don't think we are going to hit it this year. But we're still trying. So we sold did some booths around here at Smith College, which never does as well because they have booths all the time there. So, but still, we so this past week we sold cookies. We had the snow apocalypse, just like you. And then I got sick. It was really
Mm.
strange. Like I have, this is the first time I've gotten sick in a long, long time. And it was really strange. It's like the first time you get sick again. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel terrible. And you're like, why do I feel terrible? And they're like, I think you're sick. And they're like, oh yeah. Like so I just got the flu. Luckily it wasn't anything like there wasn't any liquids like nothing gross.
Hmm.
It was just like I was just all over like sore and I just like did not want
Yeah.
to move. Like so yeah, so I got the flu.
I
But
hope you're
strangely
feeling better.
yeah, it came on really fast. I felt terrible for like 2 or 3 days and then it disappeared. Like it
Hmm.
was like in and out, but the whole
Wow.
time when I had it, it was like, oh, this is
And no
never
one
gonna
else got
end.
sick in the house?
No, which is weird, but I think Hazel said she has been feeling like very mildly sick for a while.
Yeah, so maybe
And
she had it, but in a mild way
yeah,
and gave
and
it to you.
Alex, yeah, Alex said he felt bad, but he was never like knocked out like I was, and
Yeah.
then his is gone too. So like he felt bad for a day, but not as bad as
Yeah.
me. So, which is actually similar to when we get our vaccines or flu shots. It's usually the same thing. Like when we get the flu shots, Hazel and Alex are pretty fine, and I'm always the one that's like, so
Hmm.
I guess it's just my immune system.
Oh well.
And
But
anyway,
now maybe you'll be immune for your trip.
I know that's what I'm hoping. I'm going to China on Friday, so I'm doing all these things to prepare. I'm realizing it's going to be a really long flight. And so I actually went to the bookstore and bought a bunch of books to read. And while I was there, I was like, oh, I'll get another one because I read one Heated Rivalry book, and I was like, I wonder what happened to the other characters. So I was like, I'll buy the second Heated Rivalry book. I mean, there's more than two, but I was like, I'll buy the other one that
I
has
actually
the
started the second
characters.
one too.
But so I bought it, and I was like, I'll just save it for the airplane. And then I can't remember what brought it up, but someone or something made me think, wait, can I bring this to China? And I
Oh.
looked it up and I said, no, do not bring, like you can't bring
Whoa.
they will confiscate it because it's considered,
Like pornographic
yeah,
or
pornographic or
mm,
undesirable, whatever, whatever.
wow. Wow. I would not even have thought about
Yeah,
that.
I had like, and I was like, oh, well, that's a bummer, but I guess that's so I'm just bringing very safe books like, at least I'm bringing The Misfits by Lisa Yee. I'm bringing We Will Prescribe You Another Cat. Like I'm bringing all these like very safe books, but it was interesting to think like, oh, you can't even bring that, you know.
Yeah.
It's another world.
Huh. That is another world. Well, I'm excited for your trip and excited to hear all about it when you come back because you're coming
Yes.
through New York City on your way
Yes.
back.
I'll
But I
probably
guess
I'll
we should say I don't know what we're gonna do about the podcast while you're away.
Oh yeah.
I haven't. I might have a few people sub in, but we also might take a week or two off.
Yeah.
So
I
I
wonder
guess
if we can.
listeners, don't be surprised if you don't hear an episode for a while.
Though it might be interesting if we could like record while I'm in Taiwan. That would probably be no problem. It's
Okay,
just a time change.
right? Because it'd be. I mean, I could do like if you could do
If I got up at 5 in the morning, we could do 5 here.
right. I don't know. Yeah, just email me and we'll figure
Yeah.
out
Well,
if it works out. Because I can also
yeah.
record other times too. So
Yep.
yeah,
So yeah,
awesome.
so maybe we can maybe Taiwan we could probably not China, but Taiwan, I bet you.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, because we got so many questions for our 7 year anniversary episode, we didn't get to all of them. So we thought that we would get to the other half or ish today. So, maybe we can, I feel like they're not all for me. So we can take turns, or just ask the ones that we think are for the other
Yes.
person.
All right.
Um,
Why don't I read the first one because I think it's for you.
okay.
Okay, ready? Here is question number 1 for this episode. Um, what do DEI discussions look like 1 year into the second Trump administration? Well, that's a nice, easy one for you to start.
Well, I mean, I guess so at our company, I would say it hasn't changed, which I think is a good thing. We still have a DEI director. We still have a lot of the same initiatives that we're just, moving ahead with. So I would say that nothing has changed in that regard. I think what we have noticed and what we have had some discussions about in editorial is that I do feel like last year, and that was, the first year of the new old administration. I think we all noticed that we weren't receiving as many diverse submissions, and therefore we're also not acquiring as many diverse books or books by and about. I guess more about authors of color, LGBTQIA. So that was concerning, and that's something that, we've discussed. I do feel like it's something that we're like trying to double down on. And
Is it?
I know for me this year, I feel like I've acquired well, the two books that I acquired were both by people of color, authors of color, and I'm working on a third that is also by an author of color. Whereas last
Yay.
year, aside from return authors like you, um, I think there, I think I only, I don't know if I had any new acquisitions that were by authors of color. So that's, yes, I think it's something that again, like we became aware of was happening. And then now we're like, okay, we need to be a little more, we need to be even more intentional if we want to continue.
So I guess this is not one of the questions, but this is something that I thought of because this is kind of the unspoken or whispered fear of many authors. It's because we know publishing is a business, and because of the administration, uh, books with DEI themes are probably not selling as well. And of course, publishing companies are going to respond to that. Like, I mean, if books about bears aren't selling well, they publish less books about bears, like, so is that something we have to be scared of? Like,
I mean, it's definitely something to be concerned about, but I don't know if I agree that they're not selling. I don't know. Like I published Will's Race for Home. And again, I think just the fact that the author is a person of color and the characters are a person of color does not mean the the subject matter, like that it's really I don't know. Does that make
yeah,
sense? Like I do feel like
yeah,
Will's Race for Home has certain themes, but it's a very commercial adventure. It's a Western.
yeah.
And so I think that maybe there has to be a little shift about the maybe it's a topic. I don't know. Like for example, I don't know if the hate you give, for example, would be as huge if we published it today as it was, when it was published.
Hmm.
However, was that 10 years ago or less? I don't know. But so there's certain maybe more overt themes that maybe are not going to be the ones that sell, but that doesn't mean that books by people that by authors and illustrators of color aren't going to sell. So,
Well, that's nice to hear because we've seen it in school visits where that has definitely
yeah. No,
affected. So,
I mean, and I get it. Like I was, to be honest, like for the school visit that we were doing, um, we kind of just we talked about what we were going to talk about the day before, and then I was kind of panicking, as I was falling asleep, like, oh wait, what are we going to talk about? And then I was thinking, oh, am I allowed to talk about diversity? Like I'd had this like panic of, am I going to get the school in trouble if I talk about the whole reason why I got into publishing? And
yeah.
I ended up not like, I think I maybe addressed it lightly in one class, but that just wasn't, we were more talking about like, this is what an editor does. I wasn't
Hmm.
really, but I did panic a little. And I think that's that self-censorship fear also. And then luckily this school was, I would say it seemed like it was majority black, actually, the school. Um, but yes, if you're at school in Kansas or, Cleveland and you're choosing the authors for your to come to the visit. I mean, yeah, I think we have seen definitely that they're choosing white male authors more often than not.
Definitely. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
safer. I mean, it's so heartbreaking. I understand it, but I also, um, I don't know if understand is the right way. I sympathize to why they choose that, but it's still,
Yeah.
it's preemptively censoring, right? So I
It
don't know.
is. Yeah.
I don't want to judge people too harshly, but it
Yeah.
is. We're playing the game. We're playing right into their hands.
I know. Yeah. I mean, but I don't I feel like there probably are editors and imprints who are, if Little Brown, we have been, dedicated to this for longer than I've been there, if we're publishing fewer and acquiring fewer, then I have to imagine that other places are as well. But
Yeah.
again, like we're kind of trying to rededicate ourselves to it since we noticed that was happening. All right. Next question I think maybe is more for you.
Yeah.
What is the best strategy an author can use to tackle a place, a setting in their story, fiction, that they don't want to get too close to, like a cemetery? Which is, I'm not quite sure I understand this question actually.
Yeah, I don't understand this question. That's why I was like,
I wonder if it's a research question, maybe maybe you don't want to. I mean, maybe cemetery is not the right example, but
what
I
is
don't
the best
know.
strategy an author can use to tackle a place, a setting in their story? So they want to, is it because they want to have a setting, they want to set it in a cemetery, but they don't want to go to a cemetery themselves?
I think so.
Or,
I think that's to me, that's probably the question.
hmm, well, then I would say, um, gosh, number one, why are you making it something that you don't want to get close to in real life? Or, um, or make it fiction, like make it a. My first thing is like, okay, like what I was thinking about with The Gate, the Girl and the Dragon was I didn't want to make it a specific Chinatown, so I kind of made it a hybrid Chinatown of a made up place. So it took parts of the Chinatown in San Francisco, took parts of the Chinatown in Boston, and like parts in Montreal, and I moved squished it all together and put it in this city by the sea in some place, so they could just, I mean, that's the really cool thing about fiction is that you can make anything happen as long as you do it in a way that reader can the reader can buy it, like that you can convince the reader that it's true, um, then it would work. So you could have it be a cemetery that whenever the main character goes to, it disappears. Like it disappears because of something, it's really hard. This is a very difficult question to answer because I don't
Without being able to
really,
ask the follow-up questions of,
yeah, like I don't really understand
right.
the question, and I don't have the follow-up, so I need to know more context. So whoever sent this question in, if you um if you want to send some follow-up context, I would be happy to try again to answer it because I'm sure that was not a satisfactory answer. Okay,
Well, I guess
next
okay,
one.
let me just try
Okay.
to just theoretically, what if it's someplace that they can't visit, but for whatever reason it's a crucial, a pivotal setting. Like, are there like what kind of research would you suggest that they do? Like
Hmm.
online or talk to people who have been there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would do one of two things. Either make it a fictional play, make it so this is a great example. So I'm actually going to China because I want to research these seven cat statues that were actually in my book, The Gate, the Girl and the Dragon, because I kind of want to do a story about these cat statues. And before I obviously I hadn't seen them before, and I put them in The Gate, the Girl and the Dragon. And if I wasn't going to China, um, I would have just used my internet research. If there were books or anything like that on them, I think it's just all research. But for me, because it was such an obscure statues, I felt like I really had to go, which is why one of the big reasons why I'm going. So uh, I would say try to go as much as you can, and if you can't, just do the best you can. This is a terrible answer. I feel guilty giving this answer.
Well, I think that was helpful because you shared like a real life example of how you're handling it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, questioner, just send more context. This is and I promise I'll do better. Okay, next question. Do the economics of a book tour travel pay off in book sales? That's a good question.
Sometimes. I mean, honestly, there's no I think a book tour, like any other marketing or publicity, well, any other marketing, I would say, because publicity usually is technically free. I mean, it takes time and press
Mhm.
releases and all that, but book tours are the one publicity thing that costs a lot of money. And it's all a crapshoot. Like we don't know, we don't tour every single author because we know it definitely won't pay off in book sales for a lot of authors. We only tour those authors that we know already have a following. So it's very rare for a debut author to be toured. But we will tour a debut author if it's, like say a huge new romantasy book that has been getting a lot of buzz and pre-orders, then we feel like, okay, there's this built up demand for this book and this author. And so we do feel like we can get an audience for this author. But we've definitely had authors that we plan a tour and then certain tour stops are canceled because there aren't enough ticket sales or there aren't
Hmm.
enough sales at the bookstore to justify it, and so will cancel legs sometimes, and that happens. And I think every author
That feels
has.
so
I
sad.
know it is sad, and these are some really big name authors that you would think might have a following, but it's hard to compete, sometimes with the event, and you don't know, like, is there another event that day, and then the actual day comes, and it could be a store that maybe isn't selling tickets in advance, so you just don't know who's going to show up, and then maybe there's a terrible storm that day, and so no one comes. So I think most authors who have been on tour have some examples of maybe visits or tour stops that have been less well attended. I remember when we had sent Peter Brown on tour, I think I don't know if this is his first tour, but for the Curious Garden, and that was I think his fifth book or fourth book. Um, and while he was on tour, it did do what we wanted to do. It launched the book onto the New York Times bestseller list, which was his first. Um, and then, but he said the very next event he had after he hit the bestseller list, like had to like four people, and he was like, "Oh, okay." But that's just what happens. I think in that case, we consider it, yes, it paid off. And if I think if you look at the, you know, profit and loss P&L sheet
Hmm.
afterwards, we would it would show that it paid off, but sometimes it doesn't.
Do you find that are certain books you tour more, like picture books versus middle grade versus YA? I feel like YA seems to be the most popular to tour, but maybe that's just my own.
You know
Um,
what? I don't know for sure because I think we do tour all
yeah,
categories. Maybe YA it has a
just because
slight
it seems like
I think
the
YA
readers
has,
can bring themselves.
yeah, but although with the YA, it's rare to pair the authors with a school visit, not as much. So for picture books in middle grade, actually, some of the authors at this book bash that I went to were there on kind of a tour or were sent there by their publishers, to
Hmm.
kind of promote their new book. So, um, I think that for pictures in middle grade, that's the advantage is you can kind of reach more children when you go on
Yeah,
tour, whereas YA, maybe some of the authors can go to high schools, but actually we don't usually have as much of a school visit element
yeah.
booked in. So, but I mean, young adult books are priced higher, and if we can get the bookstore, people to come
To have
and
like a
buy
big
the books,
party. Yeah,
then like actually that it does maybe pay off more
yeah, yeah.
quickly because it's a higher priced book.
That
Anyway,
makes
but
sense.
yeah, maybe I'll take a look and see how many
Yeah, I
tours
was
we
just
have by
curious.
category. That might
Yeah.
be interesting to know. All
Okay, this is
right.
another one for you, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure. Okay. Publishers are pulling back from books that might be banned. This isn't always done in an overt way, but we know that it's harder to sell a queer book or social justice book these days in Kidlit, and writers under contract are getting pressured to remove or rethink those elements of their books. Cover copy is also changing to hide these elements. It feels like we've taken a significant step back. What does the future look like for authors who are writing books that are targets of book banning?
Hmm.
Hmm. We kind of covered this a little bit, but I think we could go more deeper.
Yes. Yeah, I have already talked about it a bit. I guess the pieces that we haven't talked about are cover copy changing to hide those elements. Um, is that true? I feel like this came up in a discussion recently, and I feel like in cases where it's not, say, the main character or the primary theme of the book, then we might choose not to mention it when maybe we might have chosen to mention it in the past. I don't know for sure, but it definitely, like, if the main character, like, let's say it's a romance and it's like a sapphic romance, we're not going to hide that because that then actually that's we might get the
That would be
opposite
worse.
effect, right? Like
Oh,
someone be like, this was false advertising, or like we'd
yeah.
still want the books to reach their intended audience. So I don't know, I hope that no one is hiding that. um and I don't feel like people are hiding, those. We're not going back to the days of silhouettes for black main characters on covers. I haven't seen that, and that's not something that has come up in our jacket meetings. So I think, but as I mentioned, I do think it is harder to sell a social justice book um, these days. Although I have to say, I don't know. For example, like Samir Ahmed, who wrote This Book Won't Burn, I do feel like that book is showing up more and more on state lists. And so that's
Hmm.
a good thing, like, so I
Yeah.
think a lot of schools and states are not shying away from social justice books. I mean, that is the most in your face social
Uh-huh.
justice title, I think. So, as I said, I think it is going to ebb and flow, but and I think someone said this at the conference, like, we're not going back to where we were. Like, I think there has been progress, and it's kind of like the subway ads that say sometimes you have to go backwards in order to go forwards. I think we are like in a maybe a step back now, but it's not back to where we were in 2010, say. I think
Hmm.
maybe it's back to where we were in 2016. I don't know, but I think we're gonna eventually start building back up. I guess that's all I can say about that.
In which ways do you think it's going back to 2016? I'm trying to think.
Well, I think if some publishers are not acquiring as
Yeah.
as diversely as they have been, that they're not going back to zero. They're going back to maybe where they
Yeah.
were before We Need Diverse Books
Yeah.
came into the
Ooh, I
conversation.
hope it's not before when we diverse. Well, that's sad.
Right. I don't like,
Okay.
so it's definitely where I would say probably where we are is between 2016 and 2020.
Yeah.
Like, so maybe we're in 2018 now. I don't know. In some places, but there are, I think there are pros and cons to having what people call a diverse imprint, but I
Hmm.
think there are benefits where we know there are always going to be these imprints that are dedicated to publishing these books, and they're not going away.
All right.
All right,
Okay.
I think this is maybe for you, so I will ask the next
Oh.
question. When work masters your life, how do you master downtime? Getting distance from your work in order to come back to it more creatively.
Oh, how interesting. Okay. When work masters your life, how do you master downtime? That's true. I do feel like work masters my life. How do you master downtime? Honestly, this is a good question. And I've never ever been good at this. Because I think we've talked about this many, many times about like how do we do the work-life balance, right? And
Hmm.
I think that in the end, I've always just given up. And I was like, there's no such thing as, to me, for me, I'm just like, there's no such thing as work-life balance. Like it's just you do what you have to do. And like I kind of feel like everything I do goes into my work and everything in my life goes into my work and my work kind of goes into everything in my life. I mean,
Yeah.
even when I sit and watch Ted Lasso with like Hazel and Alex, we're like I'm thinking like, oh, that's a really interesting plot, like a plot twist of how they did that, and like like I'm thinking about the story structure,
Mm.
and then like and when I'm doing my art, like I there's always something personal in there, like it's such a blur. So that is how I have mastered it. The way that I have done it is just I have just decided that it's all one big mess and there's no division between the two.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that works for me. And I'm not saying that works for everybody, but because I never really feel like I need downtime from my work. Honestly,
Because you love your
um,
work.
because I love my work. I might the things that are hard is deadlines. That is problem.
Mm.
Like when I have to like get it done at a certain time. That's the problem. But if it's not deadline related, I don't really feel like I need time away from it.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's why I don't really feel like I need distance from it. In general. Uh, though sometimes I feel like I do need like this whole trip to China, I feel like I need some fresh inspiration for it,
Hmm.
like and I feel like I need to make sure that I'm like on the right track. And so just like me going to China is just like me trying to get fresh inspiration, or like me going on vacation with my family is like me making sure that all our connections are strong,
And do you
but
sometimes like, you'll put one project aside and work on a different one? Is that a way to create distance from like the first project?
yeah.
Or do you not
Yes.
need that either?
Um, yes, I guess I could. Yes, I think I could do that. I do that too. Um, I kind of feel like usually usually the project is telling me which one should go. It's either the project,
Or the deadline?
or the deadline. That's what I was gonna say. Either the project or the deadline is telling me where to go.
Hmm.
And the only time I usually put aside a project is when the deadline for something else is
Ah,
like
interesting. Yeah.
like get on this one.
Yeah.
So um
Yeah. And I guess
yeah.
for me, from my point of view, I do need some breaks and distance. And I've talked about
Yeah.
in the past how, for me, I do use my vacations for that. And I don't do work. I don't check work email. I definitely try to create that distance um, between my life and my work. But
Yeah,
but
which makes
yeah,
much sense because you're like in a real
I'm in a nine to
corporate
five.
business. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, where I did need spaces when I was doing many, many school visits and
Mm,
performances like that I definitely need breaks from.
yeah.
Any kind of school visits or talking like that to me is like work.
Yes.
So so
Right. As
yeah.
opposed to creative work, which is,
Hmm.
yeah. Um, all right. So I don't know if this
Let's
one's for me or for
I think
you. Maybe both of
I
us.
think we'll do
Well, why
I'll
don't I
read
ask
it.
you this one and you can ask me the
Oh,
last one because I think the
okay.
last one's definitely for me. Okay, so this one is how do you know when it's time for an author to stretch into a new format or genre?
Okay, I think that you can answer that two ways. One is career wise, if which I'm sure maybe I'll let you answer that one. But I think we've covered that many times when it looks like your book did not reach the expectations, but you still obviously still want to publish and you still want to to have a career, you might pivot to a different genre or format. So that's which we've talked about many times. But I think another thing is just if you're interested. I mean, I think
Hmm.
that's fairly common. Like all of a sudden you you read a romance book and you're like, I want to read a romance book. And then all of a sudden you're like, what, could I write a romance book? I wonder if I could. And then you give it a shot. I mean, I think it's wherever the creativity leads you. And
Hmm.
it's really nice if the creativity and the career demands line up. Like that's the best. Like if it seems like you should probably pivot and also you're like I've always wanted to write a mystery, so like and then it goes that way. So I think it's pretty I think it's usually curiosity
Hmm.
on the writer's part and then um
Yeah.
book sales
Yeah.
sales
Well,
report
I
for
think that
the
last question also is relevant, so maybe we can
yeah.
dive
Okay.
into the next question.
Last question. How much of things such I think before we go on to this question I was just thinking I bet you why I was for a second I was like why I'm like what an odd question it seems so self-explanatory, right? And then I realized oh I bet you they're asking more about like should we follow like trends, like I
Mm,
wonder if they're asking if like you should stretch into a new genre because it's hot, like it's like
mm. And I
romanticy is
guess the
big so you
answer
should
is no, unless you
yeah.
really are moved to. Um,
Yeah, unless it really, unless you are interested in trying it, don't do it. Like,
right. Because
just
it's by
like
the time you
I,
write the book, the trend will be over.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So, okay, last question. How much of things such as creators' past book sales, social media presence, accolades, etc., are taken into account when acquiring new books?
They're definitely taken into account. I would
Oh,
say past book sales, number one, especially if it's an author we have at least like a four book track with. We can tell is the track going up or down. Um, and it's not necessarily whether or not we're going to offer on the book, but it might definitely inform how much, how high of an advance we're able to offer. Social media presence, I would say, not take into account that much. I would say it definitely comes up. Usually, the marketing person brings it up, especially if it's a debut. We just want to know, is this person connected, to other authors? Is this person, posting? Um, but I guess it would just be a plus. Like if they don't have a presence, the question might come up is this person real? But aside from that, it's not really a deterrent. It's more like
unless they've posted something really bad.
right, that's
Those,
true. Yes. But it's mostly like, oh, like this person. So it's brought up, but it's not that's I've never seen a deal be made or broken by that, unless it's someone that we are buying because like, oh, they posted this on TikTok and went viral, and so then of course we are taking into account number of followers.
What if they
Um,
had like because we all the questions have been about DEI. What if they are really vocal about politics? Is that something that
Um, you know what? I've never seen that be brought up in that way. So either the authors haven't been political or it's just not. They're when the marketing person brings it up, it's always just more along the lines of like they might say how many follows they have and kind of how they are posting. So maybe that in that way it comes up where, are they engaged? So I guess if they were I don't know. Maybe if it's not aligned with the book. So, I don't know. Let's maybe if their posts are very sexual and they're writing a picture book, that probably would come up. But it hasn't.
Hmm.
It hasn't in my experience. And then accolades, yeah, if they have starred reviews or won awards, again, I think similar to social media presence, it could be a plus, but it's not the end all be all. Um, but yes, definitely sales. That comes up all the time.
Yeah.
Um, yes, and we know it's not always in the author's control, and they're all there was like a couple years of pandemic publishing, right, where we're like, well, this was published during the pandemic, and hardly anything was selling, on the front list. So that's
Yeah.
definitely something that is brought up in meetings too.
It's a really hard thing because each book is different, you know, like
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's
And
true.
so
And I think the when it's frustrating is when I see, so if it's a book that we published, we do what we call a post pub, where we get the actual sales, the actual costs that went into it, including advance, including marketing, including, the unit bound costs, the production costs, and we see if we're profitable or not. So of course, if we have been publishing 5 books in a row and we haven't been profitable on any of them, it's I wouldn't say we wouldn't sign up the next book, but we'd have to all really love and believe in this book. Like we'd have to say, despite this track, we actually think we can break this one out, and this is how we're going to do it. Um, but I think oftentimes it might be if we hadn't paid that high of an advance, actually these books might have been profitable. And so therefore, if we can get this next book for this lower advance, we're willing to give it
mhm.
another chance. But if we can't, then, perhaps we can't do it. So that's the sad truth. And if they're published at another company, we don't have necessarily the full sales, so we're going by book scan, but we know that's just a percentage. So that's when it's a little bit trickier. So, all right. So that wasn't a happy one to end on, but we're
I
gonna
was like, that's a little
we're gonna
sad to
talk
end on.
about our happy memories for our fortune cookie segment. So
Yes.
because we've been buried in so much snow, we just thought we'd share some happy snow memories from the past.
Why
Grace,
don't
what
you
are
go
yours?
first?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I had two. Okay, so
okay.
one from childhood is just my brothers and I, mostly, yeah, my brothers and I would always, this is when we lived in upstate New York, I believe, where we would have feet of snow and we could really bury underneath and make little tunnels in the snow and snow forts. And I just remember like just loving that digging it out and carving of the snow and, getting really cold, but still just wanting to finish. And then you sit in the little snow structure and I think we would spend hours doing that, and that was a really nice memory. And then my second one was as an adult, I guess was I in my 20s, maybe early 30s. I remember there was a huge snowstorm coming, but we all had plans to meet up at a bar, and so we still met up at the bar, and it was just storming outside, and so when we all left, we all had different stories of how we made it home. One friend had shown up on skis, so he skied
Oh.
home. Other people got stuck, like the subway wasn't working, so we had to, so the next day everyone was emailing like how they got home, and it was kind of similar to this feeling of at Kindling Words, actually, of like when we all were on, we were posting on Instagram like, oh, we made it. Everyone's like, oh, did you make it? And it was that kind
Uh-huh.
of feeling.
Oh.
But that cozy feeling of being in a bar with friends while there's a storm outside, and then like
Hmm.
embarking out into the storm to get home. That was a nice
Oh.
memory.
That's sweet. All right, I'll
How
share
about
two
you?
memories.
Okay.
Okay, I'll share two memories. One is my good friend Renita gave me when Hazel was a baby. She gave me this hand-me-down, which was this beautiful Chinese snowsuit. And honestly, it's a Chinese snowsuit because it was made out of Chinese silk. It was red, bright Chinese silk. Like it's obviously, but it was full of like it was very like a snowsuit was like full of padded cotton and everything like that. And it was so beautiful. It was obviously something that she had gotten in China or Thailand. And she said, I got this so beautiful, but my kid never got to wear it, right? And so I remember looking at it, I was like, I wonder if Hazel's gonna get to wear it. It's and it was sitting there in the drawer, sitting in the drawer. And then I remember there was a big snowstorm, and I was like, Hazel can wear the
Yay!
snowsuit. And so like I put her on it and I put her in it, and it's like I don't even know if she was able to walk it then. I don't think so, but there's photos of me like holding her in this like red silk snowsuit, and I was like, oh.
Aw.
So that was a beautiful memory of like she got to wear the Chinese silk snowsuit. My other memory when I was an adult is when I was writing When the Sea Turned to Silver, and When the Sea Turns to Silver takes place in winter. And so I was doing all this research on Asian snow myths, right? And there's a lot in China. And I was like, gosh, obviously like our parents are from Taiwan, and I was like, I'd like to put some Taiwanese like mythology. And so I called up my mom and I was like, Mom, are there any like Taiwanese snow myths? And she was like, what? I was like, and she like laughed at me and she's like, there's no snow in Taiwan. And I was like, oh, okay. So I remember feeling really dumb and being like, oh, okay, this is gonna be a completely Chinese myth book.
Yeah.
So I remember that was a
I
not,
mean, it's not
yeah,
a bad
there's
mistake to have
no,
made. Like, I
there's
can
no
understand
myth,
that. Because you
but
never know. Because some places have I mean, Taiwan does have mountains. I'm
that's
sure it
true.
has snowed at some point somewhere in Taiwan. But yes, I
Yes.
think it makes sense. There's no myths about it.
Yeah, like there's no like snow lady or snow, like
Yeah.
so. So
All right. So now we'll end as we always do with what we're grateful for. I can start because I just got back from Kindling Words. I, of course, will have to say I'm grateful for the Kindling Words community, but even more so because, as I mentioned, people were trying to figure out how to get home, and there were a lot of people who had driven and lived in the Boston area, and everyone just really opened up their cars and their homes, and everyone's like, "How are you getting home?" and "How are you?" And so for me, one woman said, "Oh, and I can drive you to Amtrak." That's nearer to my house, which is, two stops, past, like, so instead of going back up north to Boston and then back south again, we just went, I assume, west to Route 28. Um, and we had lunch, and there were three of us. And she said, and because there's a Marriott near there, and worst comes to worst, I have two guest rooms, and it was just really
oh,
nice. And
yeah,
everyone was really pitching in, and so it was really a demonstration of that Kindling Words spirit and community. So I'm really grateful for that.
that's nice.
How about you? What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful that I've been watching the weather reports, and like I said, I leave on Friday, and it looks like it's going to be clear weather. So like
Yay!
this, like the sun, no snow apocalypse on Friday when I leave, and so I'm really really grateful for that. So it looks like it should knock 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 should be smooth sailing, and I'm grateful that I'm going on this great adventure. See,
Yes,
great
yes.
adventure.
I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to hear all about it.
Yes,
Yay!
me too.
And that was the anniversary Q&A part 2 episode. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to Alex at Paceywork Studio for editing this podcast. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and tell a friend about it.
And tag us on social media using the hashtag BookFriendsForever, or send us a message via Instagram at bookfriendsforever_podcast, or via our website, bookfriendsforever.com. And please join our Patreon. The link is in the show notes. Is the survey still going?
I think by the time this airs, it won't be
Oh.
going anymore. But
Well, thanks for
I put it
answering the
in last
survey, everyone.
week's. Yes. I'm Alvina Ling, and you can find me at Planet Alvina on. No, why do I keep saying that? You can find me at Alvina Ling on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads.
And I'm Grace Lynn, and you can find me at Pacey Lynn on Instagram and Threads, and author Grace Lynn on Facebook.
Have a great week and a great
And don't
trip.
forget to read.
Bye.
Bye.